Hello. Okay, so today we're going to look at something called gain staging. And before we get into it, I just want to simply say that this is not a definitive way to do anything. There isn't a definitive way to do anything, and that's what gives us individuality. But anyway, off track here. Gain staging is simply the process of making sure that all of your audio is at the right levels to give yourself enough headroom to do the mix properly without clipping before it hits the mixer. So, as an example, you would make sure that all the audio here is lower than basically, I typically go for about minus 15. So at that point, before it hits this mixer, because otherwise you get clipping, and clipping is not a good quality at all. So what I've got two versions of the same project to show you what's good and what's bad. Now this is the version that's bad. You'll see through this whole mixer here, and I will put a plugin called Span in here just to show you where the clipping is. Now anything that goes over this point here is classified as clipping, and it overall just makes you sound really bad. I mean, nobody's going to want to play that anyway, because it's more often than not either going to destroy someone's ears or destroy their speakers. So without further ado, I will play this through, and then we'll go to the other project and we'll go into it in full detail. This is clipping. You don't want that. Okay, so that's the general gist of the bad version. Now, as you probably noticed as we went through there was a lot of orange and red everywhere. That's something that you ideally don't want. Now, while the sound of the song itself is spread quite well, that's a preference as to how you make the music. Now, what I would prefer to do myself is this. Now, same project, but what I've done is I've pre-leveled everything before it goes into the mixer to show you exactly what we're trying to achieve. But I've also taken away all of the audio spread through the actual mixer itself, so nothing is panned anywhere. There's no, reversed left and right. It's just simply straightforward where it is before you make any adjustments. Now, what I tend to try and do here is go through every single sample and synth and make sure that you're not really over minus 15 decibels. That overall, when everything is played together, should give you a region of about between minus 6 to 0 to play with headroom. Now that headroom can be used to increase the impact of a sound within the mix overall. You give yourself a lot more room to spread things in the stereo field. But what I'm going to do is I'll just play this one through here now, just to show you what the sound should really be like going into your mixer before you've mixed everything overall to sound the way that you want it to sound. Make sure that you look here as well for the levels. You're trying to avoid anything that's going into orange and red. Definitely avoid the red, because that's clipping. You don't want any of that. Okay, so as with the other one, there is definitely a difference in the sound, and as I said, that's mainly because I've taken the spread away from things. And what I mean by the spread is where I've positioned it in the stereo field. So if I put it out nice and wide, so you've got a wide open sound or a very central sound. Now, with everything being the way that it is, everything is very central. But because you've mixed everything before it's gone into your actual mixer and brought all the levels down to a nice space where you've got enough headroom, you've got more than enough space in there then to put everything exactly where you want it within the stereo field and give it more impact overall. Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do some of that now, just to give you a gist of how your mix can sound and what much more quality that you'll really get from doing something like this before you actually do your main overall mix. Now, I've got a process that I like to use. It's, I think, usually it's about 3 to 4 steps. I do vary that from what kind of music that I make, but as for this one, what you tend to do really best is to put your whole overall thing down that you're trying to achieve. So that's make everything. Don't really adjust it too much. Now, you can always adjust the EQ a little bit before we go into the main mix down, just to get your presence where you want it. So to start, make your song, give everything a little bit of a touch and a tickle to make it where you want it to. But again, remember that the levels need to be at least -15. That's a personal preference. People do say anywhere between -15 and -10 to 12 is okay. But remember, the lower the number goes here, the less headroom that you're going to get to play with when it comes to your main mix down. Now, from that point, what I tend to do then is go into my EQ mix down, which is what I like to call it. It's personal designation. This is where you apply certain amounts of EQ and types of effects to the mix to give it more of that personal feel, to get the song to sound the way that you want it. Again, remembering you don't want to bang them levels up too high, but give everything the presence that you want it in that song before you go down to your master mix. So that's where you've bounced everything out as you've got it the way you want it to. Put it all back in a WAV file, or you can just do it simply in the mix as you've got it here. There are 2 very optional ways to do that. And then just overall do your EQing over the whole sound rather than the individual sounds. So again, just to reiterate, put everything down the way you want it. Little EQs here and there just to make the sound the way you want it. Then overall EQs as your master. That's the general process that I tend to use myself. So we're going to go into a little bit of a mess around with this now, see if we can position things, get it to sound a little bit better than it does right now by using some stereo manipulation. First thing I'm going to try and play with here is the main melody sound. What I want to try and do is put some sort of a sidechain on the main melody and the bass through the use of the kick drum. So we're going to try and achieve that here now, and I'll try and show you how to do that. So bear with me. Right. Right, so because you've got your kick here, and this I believe is the actual melody. Yeah, right, so this is the actual bass line rather than not the melody. We're going to sidechain to this track. And also, we're going to look for the main melody. We're going to sidechain to that as well using the same kick drum. So we've sidechained to both tracks. Now what we're going to do is we're going to insert a limiter on each track, and it seems that I've already done it on that one, so we can use that. Right, first things first, we're going to work with the bass drum and the bass itself. We're trying to create this ducking type effect. I think that's enough for that one, so we're actually going to do the same thing now on the actual main melody. Let me reset all these. Let me just get rid of that. In fact, actually, I'm just doing a fresh one so you can see what I'm doing. Let make sure that stayed on there as well. Yeah, it did. Right. So we've got the decking that we're looking for here now, see how it sounds together. There we are, we've got the presence of that we're looking for now. Right, so now we're going to look to spread the main melody over the stereo field. So we're going to solo that out, because this is the main melody. We are going to try and do that here now. First of all, we're going to swap the stereo from left to right. We've also got a link to the second one here now, but I've basically silenced that. So what we're going to do is we're going to unsilence that now by bringing this about 3/4 of the way up, but bring the fader down, because it does increase the volume quite a lot. You just basically spread that over the stereo field, so it's a bit of a wider sound. We're also going to do the same thing with the bass. Now, with this as well, I've also got this widened over here, so we're going to do the same thing there. I'll bring the fader right down. Right, so let's see how that sounds together with the main melody. I think we could bring the bass down overall because it's a little bit too present. And we could bring the main melody up a little bit. But remember, in doing this process, you don't want to see any clipping going on anywhere. So if this is banging straight up to, like, you know, 6 or 3, you just want to reduce that volume overall, because otherwise you're not really going to give yourself too much headroom. But now the one thing I can notice here now is there's not a lot of volume in the main melody. So even though we're messing around with these faders, we don't want to adjust it here. So we're just going to put a bit of a gain in here on this channel track. So we're just going to put another limiter in here. There are other ways to do it, but this is a personal preference. So I'm going to try and get that up to about 9. I don't want it really going any higher than that, because even then I'm giving myself very little room to work. Actually, that'll do around about there. So that's probably at about -11. maybe -10, which is okay, because you want between like -15 and -10 to get really where you want to go with enough headroom. So we're alright with that right now. The next thing we're going to want to do is try and basically give that kick drum some more presence and some more impact within this overall mix right now. So we're going to activate that, but we're going to turn off the snare. Now the one thing I can notice straight away that's what I've got a problem with is that kick drum seems to be, the sound is travelling for too long. So we're going to bring that down by we're going to bring the output up to bring the sound down, basically. As for how long the sound travels, you can reduce it by doing this. Now, because I've got a layered kick, I'm just going to turn the second kick off. That's as much as I want for that one, and I'm going to do the same then to the other one. That's it. What we're doing there basically is we're reducing the tail, or if you will, the release of the sample, so that it doesn't go on as long. And this also affects the side chaining when it comes to the bass and the melody that we put the side chaining on. So we're going to put them on together. I'm happier with that. I prefer that to what it was. Seems very little, but when you give some EQ and a bit of presence than the main mix, it sounds a lot better. So we need to bring this really up right now, so we're going to give it a bit of an EQ and see where we can go from there. One thing I want to make a mention of here now is when messing around with the kick drum, it's very easy to get yourself into an area where you don't have much to play with, so be careful of that. Now, this is a rather large increase, so we're just going to bring that down, and we're actually going to turn the whole overall volume up, but after the EQ, by putting in the limiter and just giving yourself a bit of a gain. So I don't mind that. It's a little bit over the -10, but it's workable, so we don't worry about that. So what we're going to do now at the moment is we're just going to give a bit more presence by messing around with the EQ, and then we'll bring that level down to get it to around about -15 to -10, but still have enough presence in the mix to be there and hearable. So we've got that to basically where we want to try and get that, so we're going to do the same thing with the snare now, just give that a bit more presence in the mix itself. Now, one thing I want to bring your attention to here now is with a snare drum, you wouldn't really think there's a lot of low end in that, but there is actually quite a bit of presence in the low end here, and you'll see this when I play it now. All of this is unnecessary. You don't really even need it. So the good thing you can actually do, I personally prefer to do this with one of the Fruity Loops ones, is we'll cut all that out, because even though it's really not that present and you can't really hear it, it does make a difference to the mix, and it also muddies everything up on the bottom end. Why have it there if you're not going to hear it anyway? There we go. So that's cut out. Now we're actually going to go to the EQing of that properly to give it a bit more presence. relative same thing that we've done with the kick drum, and that's to bring it up. But again, keep watching your levels. This is perfectly fine. It's only at -12. So after the EQ, I'm going to put a limiter in there and just give it a bit more of a boost. Give it some more presence. A little bit. It's more than enough. But again, your levels are always in between -15 and -10. Oh, okay. Good to know. Alright, bear with me. I'll restart it now. Apologies for that.